According to reports, Saudi club Al-Nassr are preparing an £84 million bid for Mohammed Kudus. And if they were to follow through with this and make it a formal offer, I don't think we can reject it. And in fairness, if they were to make it £85 million, we literally couldn't reject it, as it would trigger Mohammed Kudus's minimum fee release clause of £85 million. But 84, 85, I think this would be really good business for West Ham. And I think it would solve one or two problems that we're facing going into the summer transfer window. So I'm hoping it's true, and I kind of believe it. But I'd rather see him go to a Saudi club than another English club, because I think Mohammed Kudus still has the potential to go on and become a world-class player. I think the ability is there, but we've not seen the best of him at West Ham, and I don't think we will see the best of him at West Ham. So that's why I'm keen to move him on this summer, but definitely not to another Premier League club, because it would really frustrate me if he moved somewhere else within England and absolutely smashed it and reached his potential. Because I'd be watching a player thinking, if only we'd seen that at West Ham, because we haven't. Ultimately, we have not seen the best of him. In regards to selling him, I think this has always been the plan. I signed him 2 years ago, and we had to put that release clause in there in order to attract him to West Ham United. Earlier on in that summer, his move to Brighton collapsed because of the minimum fee release clause. Some reports suggest that Brighton weren't willing to put one in his contract at all, and that's why he wouldn't go. Others suggest that the fee Brighton wanted to put in was too high, and Kudus wasn't willing to accept it. Regardless, the move fell through. Chelsea were interested. Tim Steidten got on his jet, went and got him. I mean, he played for Ajax, didn't he? And he scored. I remember seeing it after the game. He was speaking about how he's leaving. So Tim Steidten, off on his jet, went and got Mohammed Kudus. And I remember this is the first time I was really impressed with Steidten. I got my hopes up for the reign under Tim Steidten, perhaps, because of the purchase of Mohammed Kudus. I was a big fan of him at Ajax and a little bit from what I'd seen from Ghana. And I generally considered this a coup when West Ham signed Mohammed Kudus, because when we were first linked, I thought, no chance, we ain't getting this guy. He's too good for us. He's got ambitions to go play Champions League football. He's not going to come to West Ham United. But when we did get him, wow, I was excited. And it's been the first signing for a little while, and I've not felt like that towards a signing we've made since. That I was really excited to see what he could do at West Ham United. I had big hopes for him. But when we signed him, that minimum fee release clause was there. And I think it was there initially to attract him. However, at the end of the first season, I think he had a good season under David Moyes. Did we see the best of him? No. But it wasn't necessarily his fault. I don't even think it was David Moyes' fault. I've always felt with Kudus, Bowen and Paqueta, you'll never get the best out of all three of them. I don't think there's a formation or a style you can play that will see the best version of Jarrod Bowen, Lucas Paqueta and Mohammed Kudus at the same time. I think you can get the best out of two of them, and hopefully the third one will be really good. And I think that's arguably what we've seen for spells in the first season. And I think Kudus at times was the one that had to miss out a little bit. But I could understand it. And I didn't want Jarrod Bowen moved to accommodate Mohammed Kudus, because I felt Bowen, and I still feel like this, Bowen was our most important player. He was our best player. So unfortunately, if Kudus' best position was on the right-hand side, say, he can't go there. That is Bowen's position. But I think, by and large, I think he had a really good first season with West Ham. And if West Ham wanted, at the end of the first season, we could have offered him a new contract. We could have said, right, here you go. Let's get rid of that minimum fee release clause. Or increase it. Let's get up to 100 million. But we decided not to. We decided not to give him a new deal. And I think that would suggest that we were perhaps okay with selling him for 85 million, because there was interest in him. And West Ham did really well to keep it quiet that his release clause expired quite early in the transfer window. I feel like it expired at the end of June, his 85 million minimum fee release clause, and it didn't come out until that day or the 1st of July, because I remember Plattenberg was the one that released it, and he said, oh, West Ham managed to keep him, no one's bid for him. I thought, wow, that's interesting, because A, no one knew about it, but B, if Kudus wanted a move, that could have got leaked just like that. Kudus's team could easily put it out there and let other clubs know, hey, you can come get him for 85 million. It didn't happen. We kept him. And I considered going into this season, after the transfer window shut last summer, and Kudus still being a West Ham United player, I consider that a success. Now, my belief and expectation has always been he will leave this summer. Because when we first signed him, our belief as a fan base was that his 85 million release clause was active this coming summer only. The fact that it was active last summer was a surprise to us, but then we discovered, like we said, it had a deadline of the end of June, which rules a lot of clubs out, really. Going into this one, we don't know if there's the same sort of time frame on the minimum fee release clause being active, whether it's active for the whole window until the end of June. We're not 100% sure yet. We've not been told that, but it's still there. And I think the plan has always been to cash in on him eventually and go and reinvest that money. The problem is the person responsible for that plan has also left West Ham United in Tim Steidten. So what does Graham Potter want with Kudus? And then while I think he had a really good first season, this season's been poor. It's been really poor. Under Lopetegui, he was petulant, I think is a fair word to describe his time. Reportedly fell out with Lopetegui at half-time against Brentford, and then he started pushing Tottenham players in the face to get suspended. It was a disaster of a tenure under Lopetegui. Under Graham Potter, he's looked okay. I've been impressed by his attitude, because there were some games under Lopetegui, come the hour mark, I felt like he looked disinterested, and by the 70th minute he'd given up altogether. Not felt like that under Potter. Arsenal away, I thought he was fantastic, and even in games where he struggled to impact it, I feel like his attitude under Potter has looked really good, and he looks like he wants to be at West Ham, and he's trying. And I like his words. He's very humble and candid. He's been speaking about how he's not been good enough. And you look at his goals and assists this season, it's terrible. It's not good enough for a player of that ability. But I do think you can make excuses on his behalf. Lopetegui, playing style, there's lots of stuff that you can put out there. But one thing I don't think you can question, or I certainly won't question, is Kudus' ability. I think he's a top player, and I think he's got the potential to go on, like I said, to be world class. I do strongly believe that. A lot of it's based on what I've seen at Ajax as well as at West Ham United, and that's the sad part. That's the failure on our part. Because if we're going to attract players that have a big future in the game, if we're going to sign players that are considered a coup for us, you've got to then make the best out of them. You've got to make them work. And I think if Kudus was to go this summer, I'd feel a bit sad, because we failed in that aspect. We've brought in one of the best young players in football and not really taken advantage of having a player of that ability at the football club. Now, the reason I kind of believe this rumour, now the source itself isn't great on this one in terms of the journalist. It's not like he's got a good hit rate with West Ham. He might have one with Al-Nassr, I don't know. But the thing that makes me sort of, not necessarily believe it, reluctant to deny it, is possibly fairer, is Al-Nassr went after Mitoma in January. They bid 80 million for Mitoma in January. So we know they've got money to spend. We know they're looking at Premier League for players that play out wide. It feels like it makes sense. Kudus feels like a target that's realistic and makes sense for one of the Saudi clubs. And like I said, I hope it happens, because if he was to go to a Premier League club, putting the whole thing, what I said earlier, to one side, just talk about money here. Would a Premier League club pay 85 million for Kudus this summer? I can't see it. He hasn't done anything to warrant that price tag. And West Ham would be in a difficult situation if, I'm just going to chuck a team out there. He's not. I don't know if this club actually want him, but let's say Liverpool came for him and offered 50 million. West Ham are in a really difficult position, because do we cash in on a player that's been underperforming? But at the same time, he should be worth more. He could be worth more, so do we keep him for another year? What about Kudus? Does he want to go? I think problems would arise if other clubs came in and started bidding around about the £50 million mark, which I think would be a fair fee for both parties. If Al-Nassr comes in with 84 million, I just think it solves that big problem. I think it would fund a rebuild for West Ham United this summer. We should have money to spend, but I think Potter at the minute is possibly under pressure to sell one or two players. And I think the biggest example would be Naif Agard, where he's having a good season, clubs are interested, he's probably 25, 30 million you could probably get for him, round about there maybe. But what happens if Potter wants to have a look at him? Well, Potter's thinking, actually, I quite like him at West Ham next season, but that's the guy that's worth money and has interest, and he might feel like he's got to sell him even if he doesn't want to. But selling Kudus just takes the pressure off completely. If you want to sell Agard, go ahead. If you don't want to, well, you can keep him now because you don't necessarily need to raise funds. We've done it through the sale of Kudus. And that's why I'm hoping that this is true. And like I said, it will be sad. I think Kudus' biggest problem at West Ham has been Jared Bowen. That Bowen's just been so good. Now, that's the Mohammed Kudus thing. Tim Steidten spoken yesterday. He was on a podcast, and all the quotes have come out about him wanting, he's got no regrets over any transfers, and he feels like you need 8 to 10 transfer windows. Obviously, that's 5 seasons, isn't it? 4 to 5 seasons, he reckons you need for a project. Now, these projects don't exist in football. It's a myth. It's one of these buzzwords that I can't stand. The project. Graham Potter's coming for the project. Not that anyone's claiming that, but just other clubs say, you see it all the time, buying into the project. What project? There isn't one. There never is one. Brighton can have one, sure. I'll give you that one. But that project is because of the owner, not because of the head coach. West Ham don't have one, right? So when Tim Steidten suggested that you need 8 to 10 transfers, you were never going to get that at West Ham. It just wasn't going to happen. Same with Potter. He's probably not going to get 8 to 10 transfer windows. But for a good technical director, let's call him a director of football because that was kind of what his role was. For a guy in charge of player recruitment, he had over 130 million to spend last summer. And that doesn't even include Tadibo, who he still brought in. So in theory, he spent 160-ish million, Tim Steidten did. He committed 160 million in transfer fees. I expect anyone that's good at player recruitment at any club in the world to improve their team with that much money. It's not difficult. The more money you've got, the easier the transfer window gets, in theory. It's obviously easier to waste money as well, but it's certainly easier to attract players. And like I said, I think Kudus, if you were to rate all of Tim Steidten's signings, not necessarily he was responsible for in terms of identifying, but in terms of the negotiations. Because like I said, the one thing that impressed me a lot, to go in and attracting Mohammed Kudus, I think he would be up at the top. I appreciate people put Wan-Bissaka up there, but I would still have Kudus ahead of him because, well, the amount of clubs that wanted Mohammed Kudus, what you were buying at the time. I'll be sad to see him go, but not necessarily because Mohammed Kudus was leaving, because I always felt he would leave. I'll be sad to see him go because we've not seen the best of him in a West Ham shirt. And when you're a club that doesn't play Champions League football, when you're West Ham, when you're Aston Villa, when you're Newcastle, when you get these top players, you've got to take advantage of it. Newcastle are doing it with Isak, with Bruno, with Tonali. Aston Villa have done it. They've got Champions League football. I wouldn't say we did with Kudus. Yes, we had European football, but we had European football before Kudus was at West Ham. That was part of the attraction for him, probably. And I just feel like it would be a real wasted opportunity for having someone with so much talent, yet so little output. And out of everyone to blame, and Kudus has his part, he's actually the one I possibly blame the least. Anyway, there you go. Al-Nassr, 84 million. Like I said, I hope it happens. It solves a lot of problems, but it doesn't make it any less disappointing. I'm off. If you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up. Helps out the video, helps out the channel. Subscribe to the Hammers Chat YouTube channel. It's free, takes 2 seconds. And I'll be back tomorrow with Gonzo, with our Wolves preview. We're away to record it this morning. Actually looking forward to having West Ham back. In a weird way, I've needed this because throughout the season, I've sort of not missed it to some extent. When West Ham haven't played, I've not been bothered. But because it's felt like a really long international break, and it's been longer than usual because we don't play this weekend, as is the FA Cup games, yeah, it's almost made me miss West Ham. And I think that's important sometimes. I'll catch you tomorrow.